It's time. It's time. We got a third speaker coming up. And the third speaker, I get to introduce the third speaker. And I'll tell you, I met this speaker a few years ago. And he was living in Illinois. And I've been in South Florida for the last 20 years. And so we developed a friendship and a relationship. And recently, he moved his family to South Florida. And so that friendship and relationship moved into a partnership. And so we've been working together now for about 6 or 7 months. And we had this conversation one day as the pandemic started. And we said, we want to do something. We want to put together something that's going to help people in a positive way during this difficult time. Doing something to not just get through this time, but to be able to come out on the other side with an ideology, a mindset, and a vision of being unstoppable. Yeah, that's right. I'm about to introduce my friend and my partner, Mr. Terrance Leftridge, the unstoppable coach. And Terrance speaks to people. He works with people to help them get through difficult times and to develop an attitude and a mindset that allows nothing to get in their way, to take them off course, or to stop them from realizing their true potential and their ultimate objective. So I'm going to introduce to some and welcome to others my good friend Terrance, Mr. Unstoppable Lethbridge.
Thank you so much, Velton. Hey. It is an unstoppable day. I'm so glad that you guys have come on to the Real Men Speak Summit, where we're going to be sharing great information with you today. But let's make it clear. We didn't come up with this summit because we didn't have anything else to do. We came up with this summit because we're needed. We came up with this summit because real men are needed to stand up, and real men are needed to speak out. Martin Luther King once said, "The true measure of a man is not where he sits in times of comfort or convenience, but where he stands in times of conflict and controversy." And we are in that time. I want to take you back to when I was a child, and I want you to look in your mind's imagination and see if you had some of the same stories that I have. See, I grew up in a family of three. I have two brothers and one sister. So 4 kids and a single mom. I told you guys earlier that my dad passed away when I was just 1 year old. Now, I may not look it, but this was some 54 years ago. Yeah, black don't crack. There you go. But one of the games that we used to play back in the day is pillow fights. How many of y'all know and played pillow fights? Well, if you lived like we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with 5 people. So I had to share a room with my brothers. So 3 beds in one room. We had to do something to take the time. And we didn't have computers, and we didn't have Apple phones, and we didn't have all these other things that kids have in this new generation. So we had to get creative. So the one thing we loved to do was to have pillow fights. Yeah, those were the good old days. We would jump in each other's bed, and the goal of the game was to be able to hit somebody and knock them off the bed. That was the rule. That was the only rule to the game. Hit them till they fell off the bed. And we would have such a great time doing that. But now I was the baby. So I was the weakest one, and I was the shortest one. So I had to swing twice as hard, and I had to swing twice as fast in order to get my licks in order so that I'm not the one who ended up getting knocked off the bed. Well, more times than not, I was the one who got knocked off the bed. And it was funny. I'd get knocked off the bed, and then my brothers and my sister, they'd jump on top of me. One would end up on my legs. One would maybe end up on my back. And almost always by accident, one would end up on my neck or on my head. And it was funny. It was fun. We were kids. The rule was to knock me off the bed. And when they did that, they celebrated and we horse played. And I would laugh and I would say, I would just try to get from off of them, get them off of me. And it would get to a point sometimes where I would say, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And eventually they'd get off, because that was the rule. If it gets to the point where someone's on the ground and they can't breathe, the rule was get off of them. And if some of us didn't follow that rule quick enough, then we had the long arm of justice right in the other room, otherwise known as mama, that would come in and make sure the other kids got off of them. So yeah, I would be on the ground and I'd be laughing. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And if they didn't work fast enough, you'd hear me say, Mama! And she'd come right on in and they'd get off, and they may or may not get a punishment at that time. Now, as far as I can remember, that was the only time in my life that I've ever uttered the words, I can't breathe. There's a young man, or there was a young man in Minneapolis who I suspect, I never knew him, never met him, but I suspect as a little kid, he played that game too. And he knew the rules to that game. And then there was another man in Minneapolis that I never met him and never knew him. And I suspect that as a young man, he may have played that game with his siblings. And he should know the rules. So when you see this video that by now everybody has seen of one man on the ground and another man on the ground on top of him saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. It took me back to the rules of the game. And the first thing I said was the rule said that if you can't breathe, the other person was supposed to get off of them. But I didn't see that happen in the video. And so then I remembered the rules of the game, the second part that says, if they didn't get off of you soon enough, you go to the second step and you call out like that man in the video did. He called out, Mama! But unfortunately, his mama had died 2 years earlier, so she wasn't there to help him become safe and to get the other people off of him. The rules say if I call out to I can't breathe, you're supposed to get off me. The rules also say that if I call out on my mama's name, that you're definitely supposed to get off me. And it doesn't take 8 minutes and 46 seconds for that to happen. Those are the rules. But sadly, we sit here now because the rules of the game weren't followed. And as we look back over 2020, we see that the rules haven't been followed, not only in this instance, but many other instances, too many for us to count. And then if I look back over my 54 years of life, I can see 10 times as many times where the rules of the game haven't been followed. Now, the rules may not have been get off my neck. The rules may have don't judge me because of what I'm wearing or because of how I look. Don't judge me because I'm in a certain area. Don't judge me because it's a certain type of day. Don't assume that I am less than because of how I look, talk, or act. But as we find ourselves here in June of 2020, we find that the rules which were created for everybody aren't actually being followed by everybody. The people who were put in charge to create the rules Sometimes it seems like the rules they create are for a different set and for another set. Sometimes the rules that were created by the people that are in charge and were charged to certain people to enforce the rules, sometimes it looks like the rules they enforce are different on one side of town than the other. And so we find ourselves in this world in our second pandemic. When we first started the ideal of Real Men Speak, we were trying to help lead through the crisis known as COVID-19. Little did we know that we were going to find ourselves having to lead ourselves through the cyclical crisis of oppression and abuse of power over and over and over again. But I'm here to say to you that the only way that we are going to be led out of the COVID crisis, as well as this crisis of abuse of power and oppression, is that it's going to take real men to stand up. And it's going to take real men to speak. You heard Saucony say in his presentation that he wanted his kids to grow up to be better than he was. Well, I dare say today there are many fathers and many mothers out there that just want their kids to be able to grow up. And we find ourselves in a state of chaos, and we find ourselves in a state of confusion, and we don't know what to do. And all we know how to do is cry out, "Mama!" hoping that Mama will come and save the day and bring justice to this society. But when I think about that word justice, I think about how it sounds, not how it's spelled. See, it's spelled Justice, but when you say it, justice, 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 you start hearing something. And I wonder if you heard what I heard. When I hear the word justice, I hear just us. See, I heard this story one time about this girl who was saying that she was a fan of Superman and she loved watching the cartoon. And she saw a cartoon one day and Superman died. And she cried throughout the day. And her mom came into her room and her mom said she didn't know why she was crying. "What's wrong, little girl? Why are you crying?" "Well, Mommy, Superman, he's dead. Who's going to save us now?" And I think for millions of people across the world and across the globe right now, that's the question that we're saying with tears in our eyes. Who's gonna save us now? The young man in Minneapolis thought it was gonna be his mama. But when I look back and I think about it, why was Mama the first person he thought about? And here's the conviction to us as real men. And I'm going to say it, and it's my truth, and it's only my testimony, and you can take it for what it is. Too many times we have to call out for Mama because we don't know where Daddy is. We don't know where Daddy is physically, mentally. There was a song that was out a long time ago that says, "Your body's here with me, but my mind is on the other side of town." And for many of us as real men or as men, we may be present in our home, but our mind is on the other side of the town. We may be present physically with our family, but our being is somewhere else. We have too many different levels of fatherhood. We have baby daddies that aren't really fathers. We have fathers that are in the home but not really there. We have fathers who are estranged. We have fathers who are just not stepping up to the plate. And so our children don't trust that they can call out, "Daddy!" and there'll be somebody there to protect them and to bring justice for them. We got to change that scenario, and it's up to just us. And if we don't start now, when? And if we don't know how, then why? What can we do right now as real men, as real fathers, and as real father figures. Because here, as I sit here talking to you, I'm not a father, but I have the ability to be a father figure. I have the ability to be the man in the village. I have the ability to be the man on the block, so that when the other fathers are going off to work and I see another kid in the community doing wrong, that I can be that figure that steps in place. I remember growing up and on my block, everybody knew my mama and everybody knew whose kids she had. And if she wasn't there and they saw us cutting up on the street, they would stop us in the middle of the street and I'd get the first whooping there. And then they would tell my mama when she got home and I got the second one. Now, whipping, however you may feel about it, that's not my concern right now, but it was a village mentality. And we need to get back to that village mentality, because it's not justice without just us. And just us is you and you, yeah, and even you. And it's you that's watching us live right now, and it's you that may not be able to watch us live, but will catch the replay. Yes, it's you too. It's up to each one of us, just us. It's not up to the politicians. It's not up to your police force. It's up to you. We have to do some self-policing in our own neighborhoods. We have to teach. We have to preach. We have to pray. And we have to stay in order for us to move not only out of this health pandemic that we find ourselves in, but to move out of the oppression and the abuse that sometimes we place on ourselves, as well as what others place on us. And we're going to move out of those situations and stand up and be the kings who create the queens and who create the princes and who create the princesses that are going to be the next generation of this world. Then it's up to just us. So as you continue to listen and you continue to take notes and you continue to be entertained by the speakers that are coming after me over the next 16 hours, I want you to pause each and every time and think about, what can you do? Because in every just us, there has to first be a just you and a just me. What can I do to help this greater community be the world that we need it to be? If you can do that, and then the next person and the next person and so on, we can alleviate some of these problems that are in the world, and we can be a more united state. Because right now, the state of America is anything but united. In order for it to become what they declared back in 1776 and what we pledge allegiance to in a couple of weeks on the 4th of July, when we declare our independence, in order for us to go from a state, we have to become just us and become united. I'm Terrance, the unstoppable Coach Lethbridge, and that is my call to action to you.